Hi, I'm Owen and I play for the Eisenhower Knights, and I'm in 11th grade. I'm going to be reading a couple chapters to you. So, Chapter 8, A Colossal Mistake. Our family eats dinner together almost every night. Some evenings my dad has to work late. Sometimes my mom, who is a visiting nurse, has to be away at dinner time. But mostly, we eat together. And every weeknight, Dad makes us give reports on our school days. If you don't say enough, he makes everyone else be quiet until you say more. He doesn't care what you talk about. You can make up something silly if you want. Once I said, "Today the entire 3rd grade threw up from eating moldy chicken fingers." My dad laughed. He's a pretty funny guy, and he likes it when we make jokes. But that night, I didn't feel like being funny. For one thing, Mrs. Burke had given our class more homework than I'd ever had before. "You first, Squirt," Dad said to my sister. She talked for a million hours. It took her longer to talk about her day than the day itself. At the end, she looked straight at me and said, "And her name is Mrs. Diaz, not Diaz." "I told you that," I said. "No, you didn't," she said. "Dad asked my brother to go next. Usually he asked me second. But I think he could tell I wasn't in a talking mood. I was busy scowling at the squid. My brother had plenty to say about his first day at middle school. We go to different rooms for different classes. We have to carry around a map of the school so we don't get lost. Jason's in all my classes but one. It's really cool, and at lunch you can sit anywhere you want. That made me even grumpier. If Mrs. Burke was in charge of the middle school, they'd probably have to sit in assigned seats even at lunch. Then my father looked at me. "Well, Charlie, I see you're still breathing after your first day." "Too bad," said Matt. "Matt," Mom said. "I have a whole hour of homework tonight," I grumbled. "I don't have any homework," said the squid. "I want homework." "You can have mine," said Matt. "You don't usually complain about homework, Charlie," my father said. "Is something else wrong?" "Mrs. Burke has a million rules." "Wow," said Dad. "That's a lot of rules. Does she write them all up on the board, or do you have to memorize them?" Sometimes when my dad's being funny, it isn't funny. I ignored him, and we'd have to sit in assigned places. I added, Dad just gave me a look. He still didn't seem to feel very bad for me. "And Samantha Grunsky sits right behind me." "Uh-oh, I seem to remember you talking about her," Dad said, and took a bite of potatoes. "You know, Dad," Matt said, "that's the girl Charlie wants to marry when he—" "Be quiet, you idiot," I shouted. "Charlie," said my mom. "Oh my," said Matt. "What language?" "You're not supposed to say idiot," said the squid. "Hey, Mabel," said Matt. "You just said idiot, but not like Charlie," she yelled. "I was just saying not to say it." "But you did not say idiot," said Matt. "You said idiot too," she said. Now she was laughing because she knew she was saying it. Everyone had forgotten that we were talking about what happened to me. "Enough," said my dad. "No more idiots." "Now you said it," squealed the squid. They were all laughing. Ginger was barking. She always barks when people laugh, like it's her way of laughing. Everyone was laughing or barking, except me. I still thought Matt really was an idiot. When the laughing died down, my mom spoke up. "Mrs. Burke can't be that bad, Charlie. Did she talk about the play you'll put on?" "You mean when Charlie gets to be the bunny?" Matt asked. I ignored my brother's comment. "I'll be the bunny," the squid said. "Something good must have happened today at school," Mom said to me. "Nothing I can think of. Even the new gym teacher is like an army general and won't let us use the new soccer balls. And Mrs. Burke isn't going to like me no matter what I do." "Mrs. L liked me right away," Matt said. "We got along great." "Matt," Dad said, "that's not helpful." "I'm sure Mrs. Burke will grow to like you," Mom said. "She hates me," I said. "I can tell by the way she looks at me." "Everyone always likes you, Charlie. Wait until she sees all the things you're good at." "Like what?" I said. "You're good at math," Mom said. She was right. I was pretty good at math and reading. Okay, I said. "You're good at being an idiot," said Matt. "Stop it, Matt," Dad said. "I mean it." "You're good at a lot of things," Mom went on. "And you're a good kid." That's what moms do. They tell you you're good when you think you're not. "Mom, Mrs. Burke just doesn't like me," I said, "and I'll never like her. I can't believe she was ever Teacher of the Year." Dad put his fork down. "Charlie, you don't have to like Mrs. Burke, but you do have to learn to get along with her because you're stuck with her for the whole year." You mean like you're stuck with Mr. Grimaldi? I asked. My dad screwed up his mouth and looked at the ceiling. Mr. Grimaldi was his new boss. Dad wasn't happy when his old boss, Mr. Ralston, left, and Mr. Grimaldi took his place. He was always complaining to Mom about him. I guess sometimes parents don't realize that their kids hear what they're saying to each other, but we do. Charlie, said my mom, you shouldn't say things like that. I agree completely, said Matt. Hold it. Dad held up his hands. That's a fair question. Yes, you're stuck with Mrs. Burke just like I'm stuck with Mr. Grimaldi. Do you get along with Mr. Grimaldi now? I asked. I'm working on it, he said. Well, I said, when you learn to get along with Mr. Grimaldi, maybe I'll learn to get along with Mrs. Burke. I was quiet at the table. Dad looked at Mom, then back at me. He held up a finger. Okay, I'll make you a deal. I'll learn to get along with Mr. Grimaldi if you learn to get along with Mrs. Burke. Is it a deal? Trick question, no good answer. Dad stuck his hand across his table for me to shake. I looked at him. I didn't want to shake it because that meant I would have to learn to get along with Mrs. Burke. But he was my dad, so I shook it. I already like Mrs. Diaz, said the squid. You mean Mrs. Diaz? Asked Matt. No, Diaz, 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 said the squid. Everyone laughed again. Ginger barked, but I didn't laugh. I knew I made an enormous, colossal mistake by making a deal with my dad, because I would never be able to get along with Mrs. Burke. I'd rather quit school and go to work and try to get along with Mr. Grimaldi. Chapter 9. The Egg is Wrong. Somehow I made it to Friday without dying. When I got out of school that morning, I saw that Mrs. Burke had hung up a sign in the hallway with these words printed on it. Our favorite books. The day before, we had drawn pictures of scenes from our favorite books. Now all the pictures were taped to a long string hanging on the wall. It looked great stretching up and down the hallway. My favorite book is Jeremy Thatcher, Dragon Hatcher, which I've read 1,000,000 times, or at least 3. My picture of Jeremy Thatcher looking at the dragon egg was hanging right over our classroom door, so everyone could see it when they walked in. Mrs. Burke was just inside the room looking down at me. Up close, she seemed even taller. I liked your drawing very much, Charlie, she said. Good job. I was speechless. Mrs. Burke had said something nice about me. Some other kids told me they thought the picture was cool, too. Even Ellen Holmes, who can draw really good pictures, especially horses. Then Samantha Grunsky spoke up. Your picture's wrong, she said. What do you mean, I asked. I read the book. The egg is rainbow-colored. Samantha was even more annoying than that girl in the book who drove Jeremy Thatcher crazy. I don't care, I said. I had colored it gold because my favorite pencil was gold-colored. It's still wrong, she sniffed. Like she was the queen of books or something. I'd really like the egg the way it was, but after Samantha said that, it started to bug me. Every time I walked past the door, there was my picture right overhead with the egg the wrong color. When we lined up for recess, Mrs. Burke put me in front of the line right next to Samantha Grunsky. Your picture's still wrong, she whispered. So's your brain, I said. When everyone is through talking, Mrs. Burke said, we can go. We all got quiet and followed her out to the playground. I spotted Tommy standing with some other kids by the fence. It looked like they were arguing about something. Are you kidding? Tommy said to Darren Thompson, just as I came over. Charlie can beat you by a mile. Uh-oh, if only Tommy could learn to keep his big mouth shut once in a while. Hey, Charlie, Tommy said. You're still the fastest, aren't you? I don't know, I muttered. I was the fastest last year at field day, but not by much. I'd barely beat out Darren, and Caitlin Wang had almost beaten both of us. I guess we'll find out on field day, I said. No contest, Darren said. I'll beat you by a mile this year. No, you won't, Tommy shouted. Let's have a race now. I looked at Tommy like he was crazy. Why does he always blurt out stuff without thinking? Even if I did beat Darren, he'd probably just give me a wedgie again. By now, other kids were all chanting, let's have a race, let's have a race. I didn't feel like racing. I couldn't stop thinking about dumb Samantha Grunsky and the wrong colored dragon egg. Not now, I said, heading back toward the school. I have to do something inside. Chicken, Darren said. That's not it, I yelled back. Peacock, Darren said, flapping his arms like chicken wings. Come on, Charlie, Tommy pleaded. I know you can beat him. I kept walking. The dragon egg picture was on my mind, and I had to take care of it now. I was almost to the door when I heard someone on the playground yelling my name. I stopped. Brady, the first grader with the funny voice, was running toward me. "Charlie," he was still yelling even though he was only a few feet away, "I can't get my jacket unzipped." I looked around. There were Tooches all over the place, but Brady just stood there staring up at me with his big eyes. I got down on my knees and unzipped his jacket. "Wait," I said as he turned to go. "Your shoelaces are untied again." He glanced down at his shoes, then back at me. I tied the laces and gave them a double knot. "Thanks, Charlie," he said in his croaky little voice and ran off. It's a good thing Brady's head was stuck on permanently. If it wasn't, he'd probably lose it. I went back inside and headed down the hallway to my classroom.